Hi, it's Dr. Martha Lucas with my podcast, Energy Medicine Woman. And today we are going to talk about social stressors and how they may create problems or trigger problems in the immune system. And you can see the picture of my pulse diagnosis book is up there because I'm going to be sharing this podcast with both acupuncturists who are also known as practitioners of Chinese medicine, as well as the general public, to help educate people about stress and how it can negatively affect your immune system. And so for the acupuncturists or practitioners out there, this is also about the importance of being able to feel in your pulse diagnosis the depths of emotion and whether the emotions have gotten to the adapted level. In other words, whether the person's immune system has been struggling for a long time or is being triggered to struggle from old emotional issues. So it's just a fact that certain social interactions may weaken the immune system to the point that it cannot control the inflammation that is being caused by the bacteria or the virus or other sort of infection. And then this inflammation can, if it's irreversible or if it just keeps continuing, it may eventually lead to some sort of internal damage. I want to talk about a study where socially stressed mice were twice as likely to die after exposure to a compound that triggered an infection, some sort of compound that the researchers used to trigger an infection-like response, as were the physically stressed mice. Let me say that again. The socially stressed mice, so that means stressed in a social situation, were twice as likely to die from the infection than were the physically stressed mice. So what they did was use a bacterial toxin, and honestly, the researchers felt like they can't completely understand why social stress is so much more dangerous than physical stress. But the fact was that when they injected this bacterial toxin, the immune cells reacted like they were fighting an infection. And in the socially stressed mice, the response triggered the overproduction of cytokines, which are hormones that regulate immunofunction. So you've heard that word cytokine before because all that's been talked about, I'm doing this podcast in January of 2022, and for fully the last 2 years, we've all heard about cytokines and how the cytokine storm is what was partially killing people when they got the COVID infection. So the problem with the mice was that the sudden onslaught of these inflammatory cytokines caused toxic shock, which is similar to septic shock in humans. But the mice that were only physically stressed remained healthy. So interestingly enough, cytokines are a strong weapon for killing bacteria, but they're a double-edged sword. While we need them for everything from wound healing to fighting bacterial and viral infections, the release of too many at a time can cause toxic shock. So the social stress for the mice was they had to be in a cage and interact with what they called aggressive mice. So here we have our situation in human terms that's dealing with people who are maybe not what you would call aggressive, but maybe we have political differences, or the person is unsatisfied, or the person is angry. So that's what social stress is. And honestly, in my personal and professional opinion, part of social stress is the worry about things happening. It's, in fact, I'm seeing a lot of patients right now who are suffering, according to my pulse diagnosis skills, what I call over worry, which means their system is now in a worry drive mode. Before, they were able to worry a little bit and go back to normal or balanced, but now they're in this over worry, socially induced extra worry. So it's important for, again, all of us as practitioners to understand and be able to feel in the pulse the emotional stress of our patients, because this social stress weakens the immune system to the point that sometimes it just has a very, very hard time getting back to normal. It's a balancing act. Even during infection in the human body, we want our inflammatory cells to kill the bacteria where it is, but we don't want too many at that site. And that's apparently what was happening with lungs. There's an infection in there, too much what they called a cytokine storm. So it's a balancing act, and we want to do everything we can to reduce both physical stress and social stress, because it seems from preliminary studies that social stress may make certain people more prone to inflammatory disease. And of course, chronic social stress in these patients is eventually going to lead to a situation where their glucocorticoid resistance is having a very, very hard time fighting off infections. So again, we want to be able for our immune systems to be balanced, to give the proper response when we have an inflammatory or an infection or a bacterial infection or a viral infection. We don't want them to overreact. And unfortunately, the social stressors that we're having in our world, especially now during the pandemic, which has been so long. And by the way, part of the problem with the pandemic is the social stress is something that we don't know when it's going to end. For example, if you have, this just happened to me recently, an injury, go to my ortho guy, and he gives me the news that it's a minimum 6-week recovery. Okay, now I know. Now I know, instead of the first 12 days where I couldn't get in to see him and saw what I thought were devastating MRI results, which turned out not to be, I had the stress of, oh my gosh, how long is this going to take? What's my treatment plan? Well, now I know, so I can deal with that. 6 weeks, hopefully 100%. If not, I know I'll be 100%. But with this pandemic, when is it going to be over? Now we're back in January of 2022. In a lot of people's opinions, we've gone way backward. We're back to mask wearing. We're back to no magazines in office. We're back in offices. We're back to, just all of the things that we did 2 years ago. So that kind of social stress is very, very hard on the immune system. So my advice is, if you're feeling a lot of social stress, get some help with that. In my practice in Denver, and I do distance acupuncture, I have herbs for that. I have treatments for that. Every practitioner does. Pretty much every practitioner understands that Chinese medicine also treats emotional issues. So you could see your practitioner, you could get some therapy. As I said, I do online therapies. So you can contact me at Dr. M. Lucas at acupuncturewoman.com. That's DRM LUCAS at acupuncturewoman.com, or contact your local practitioner of Chinese medicine or your local therapist. I can even give referrals for therapists in Denver who do telehealth visits, so you don't even have to leave your home. And try to figure out some way to do 5 minutes a day, that's all I'm asking, of some sort of focus. Some people call it meditation, but modern medicine calls it focus, because studies have shown that 5 minutes a day of focus on a bird singing, focus on a certain chant, focus on a candle burning, focus on something for 5 minutes literally changes your brain to calm it down. It literally enhances the relaxation part of our brain and downgrades the nervous part of our brain. So 5 minutes a day. And again, on my website, acupuncturewoman.com, I have all manner of self-hypnosis, Qigong meditations, where you go through a guided meditation, and it leads to that same result where your social anxiety can be relieved, your overall tension can be relieved, balance can be restored, and your immune system can be strong. And of course, there are always the supplements you should be taking for your immune system, right? Vitamin D, vitamin C. I love CoQ10. You can see on my website, acupuncturewoman.com, there's a supplement called Jade Windscreen. That's the Chinese medicine balm for keeping your immune system strong. So there are lots and lots of things that we can do to keep our immune system strong, which we don't only want to do during a pandemic. We want it to be strong forever. We don't want to have to use our core chi, our original chi, our basic chi to fight off a cold. We want our immune system to be able to do it sometimes without even us suffering any symptoms. So if you have any questions, again, you can contact me at Dr. M. Lucas at acupuncturewoman.com. That's DRMLUCAS at acupuncturewoman.com, or you can click the contact button at my website, acupuncturewoman.com, or you can call me at 303-947-6224. And if you're a practitioner listening to this particular podcast, you can see courses that I offer at lucasteachings.com, LUCAS teachings.com. All right. I hope you have a wonderful day and stay healthy.